First of all, I notice that my relationship with Christ suffers when I'm too busy. We go from, if we kind of look in the words here, we go from listening to being distracted. In verse 39, it talks about it. Jesus comes into this home and says, Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he had to say. But on the other hand, Martha, it says, was just distracted. That this relationship both Mary and Martha had with Jesus had two different experiences as a result of the busyness that was going on. One listening, caught up in what Jesus had to say. The other one caught up in the things that needed to be done and missing the very things that were being said. Our relationship with Jesus is the most important thing in our life. For every one of us. Our relationship with Jesus is the most important thing. Paul said in Philippians 3:8, I consider everything a loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. And when we have distractions, it takes us away from that. Now, you can read into this. There's probably obvious distractions for some people. I mean, they were in the room here, and you can imagine there were some people maybe that were told about it who didn't come, and obviously that, for instance, hey, did you hear? Jesus is speaking over at Martha's house. Let's go over. And maybe the guy was saying something like, well, you know what, my daughter's in Galilean dance, so I'm going to take him there. Or my son plays, for the Nazarene, league. Or maybe, hey, Galilean Idol is playing, and a few of us go and tailgate and watch as they limit. I mean, there can be excuses all around, and we don't hear those people, but there's the obvious ones. We think about how life can distract us from even being in the room, much like even here. I mean, life can be so busy that we're not even here to be able to have an opportunity to hear. Those are the obvious ones. But this story is going much more subtle in this idea that there are times we can walk right past Jesus and be oblivious to it. There are times that we can be so distracted with the task and the things that we're doing that we just miss out on what really is being said. We're too busy to look for the answers. Or I should say, to be open enough to look for the answers that are not the way that we really want it to be. We need to ask ourselves, really, do I live my day sitting at Jesus' feet listening? Do I live my day in the things that I do? When I get up in the morning, when I commute to work, when I'm around friends and I'm having coffee, do I live the day where in that moment I'm listening to Jesus? Again, I said it's not about, am I sitting at the house listening, or I'm even sitting at church. Am I walking through life listening? Because that's what this really is about. When we think about our relationship with Christ, the message here about what Mary and Martha are doing is that Mary is living her life in a way of being attentive to what her relationship with Jesus is about. Being attentive to what Christ has to say. And that's the most important thing. And when we get so busy, sometimes that busyness of the task and our to-do list and all these things that we're doing, the running around and traveling and delivering the kids to everything, are so busy that we realize that we didn't even pay attention to what was going on around us. What Christ might be teaching us or showing us around us. How Christ might be using a situation to make us a better person. We just looked at, how do I fix this problem? When in fact, that problem might have been a great opportunity to learn something new and fresh about yourself. So the point of this course is to never let busyness distract us from what Christ is saying or doing around us. To always be able to recognize that every opportunity is an opportunity to hear Christ speak. But then not only that, then there's also that my relationship with others suffer. Where you go from a closeness to more of an isolation. Because in this situation, Mary, you can imagine Mary sitting with Jesus. There was a real closeness in that relationship. No doubt a closeness with the people in the room. Just feeling like I'm just a part of what's going on. And that's a kind of a community that's taking place. Martha's in the room too, but she doesn't feel that. In the passage here, it says, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations, she said. And then she describes in her words, what does she say? You know, you can imagine what's going through. Every time she walks through into the kitchen, you know, she ruffles some dishes louder and louder, thinking someone's got to hear that I'm doing all this work. They'll come walking in any moment and say, hey, can I help you? It's not happening. Walks out, you know, loudly puts the bowl of nuts on the table there and, you know, and looking back and said, come on, you know, people, look what I'm doing. And what happens is she's becoming this wedge between her and the relationship. And so she says in here that he says, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? All of a sudden you can hear in her voice this isolation that she's in a room full of people, but no one, I don't feel any community here. I feel the burden of being the one who's carrying everybody, unappreciated. And you can just imagine the resentfulness and the attitudes and the anxiety and even as Jesus described, worry that was taking place going on, affecting her in the way that she saw stuff. Busyness alienates us from our relationships. You know, if we're honest, sometimes that's what we want. I mean, I think we don't say, oh, really? I can't believe that. I mean, I think, if we're all honest, aren't there times where I'd rather be busy so I don't have to deal with stuff going on? You know, I know that, hey, and this doesn't happen in our house. My wife's mad in the house or something like that, so, you know, hey, I better sort the tools on my bench first. You know, oh, I got to get that done because we'll deal with that later. And then, oh, you know what? I should probably, there's some weeds out there I got to get, you know, and I go do that. And so we kind of stay busy because it's a way of just avoiding what really needs to be done. I mean, that's, you know, if we're being honest, that's part of what happens. We use busyness as a way to not deal with the conflict that's in our life, which is totally wrong because as long as we leave conflict, we have a broken relationship that suffers. We're disconnected. There's an anxiety and a tension that exists where it's me and you and it's not us. But sometimes, too, we miss out on what relationships could be because of our busyness. We become people who learn to manage our busyness and manage our life and cope, but we live two separate. I won't use Facebook again. I used it last week. But we live two separate lives. You know, it's crazy. We're in the same car, but we're not really in the same life. And so somehow we allow our busyness to be, in the room, but not be connected. And honestly, the church can be that way. I've had people who, you know, they've come here and they're very good attenders. But in honesty, they'll say, yeah, but I don't know a whole lot of people. The schedules of their life don't allow for them to be able to connect or, you know, and even for myself, it's like, oh yeah, I can, you know, I got to do this, I got to do that, oh, I better get out afterwards and go do this. And as a result, we don't create the opportunity to build relationship. And again, I said I'm a Martha, so I admit the fact that, you know, I got a big to-do list and there's a lot of stuff, if I'm here, I can get done and then miss the chance to really talk to someone and get to know someone and ask them how they're doing. And we miss out because God has designed, I mean, if you read through the Bible, to be a Christian is to be in community. There isn't a Christian who can't be in community. It's the very nature of what being a Christian is. We're meant to be together. We're a body. We're bound together. We all are the bride of Christ. Everything that the Bible talks about describes this place of community. And when our busyness pulls us out of that or limits our ability to do that, then we suffer. Jesus said the most important command is to love, you know, if you summarize the Bible, love God and love each other. There, I've given it to you in 4 words. That's relationships. So for God, then, it's relationships that matter, not production. God doesn't, if he's up there with a assessment of the service, it's not about, man, those sound people, boy, they nailed it today. And oh, the band, they did great. Oh, Mark, yeah, he really got through the message really good. And check, 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 check.